to the Open Meetings Act, and if y'all please stand.
James.
Kelly, would you mind grabbing James? Yes. Mr. King. Mr. King is going to give our invocation for this evening. Hello, Mr. King. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
Thank you for praying for us again. We appreciate you.
Jesus, we thank you for this opportunity to come here and strategize about how to further the educational system here and to celebrate the work that's been done. I thank you for the work that's been done in this room, that our kids might learn better and be led. I thank you for the leadership in this room. Would you lead and guide the ideas, the thoughts, and the celebration of what has been accomplished here in Bay City. We thank you for your guidance. We pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right, I think Tenny Holmes is going to say our pledge for us this evening.
Come on in.
Come on in. How are you this evening?
Here, you can line up. How are you? Come on up.
Hi.
So this is our student council. This is the second year we have student council over at Tenny Holmes Elementary, and this evening 2 of the student council sponsors will be with them, Mrs. Rebecca McCaslett and Miss Megan Bettis.
Welcome, students. Thank y'all for being here.
Ready?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Great job.
Thank
Thank
you
y'all
so much.
much.
Thank you for being here. Great job. Thank you. Have a good evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Okay.
Yes.
Thank y'all for inviting us.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, parents, for bringing them. We appreciate you. All right. Moving on to good news. Does anybody have any good news to share that they've seen since our last regular board meeting?
See a couple good football games.
Just a few.
Yeah.
Just a few.
Just a few good football games.
Beat up Cambo,
Yeah.
beat Calhoun, overtime.
I
Set
went,
a 4A playoff record for largest
yeah, for
ball.
the spread.
Oh, I think that may have been Davenport. I think they won 90.
Oh, okay.
90 to what?
But our
Was it
spread's
oh,
bigger.
oh, okay.
Yeah, our spread is,
86-point difference.
yeah, 86 to 0. Yeah.
Pretty great. I will say that I went to the all-district PD day, can't remember, that was a couple weeks ago maybe, and that was fantastic. The work that went into it, everything that I heard was nothing but positive. So thank you. I know, Bridget, you had a huge part in that. I know everybody heavy lifted for that. Kelly, I know you were involved in that. So thank y'all so much for doing it. I think it's a huge success for the first year, and I can only imagine what it's going to go from here. Because I heard even people said, well, why did they bring Region 3 in? Sorry, we love you. But we have so many people that can, I think now people are like, oh, I want to present next year. And so I hear the rumblings already, so thank y'all for what you're doing. Thank you for the idea and bringing it in. Great work.
And then a couple of plays. So Wonka Junior at the junior high, we have some phenomenally talented junior high students. That was a musical. Wonka and Lee was really impressive. And then at the high school, I mean, the talent there, I mean, that's Broadway level stuff. So, yeah.
Anybody have anything else?
Can I? Is it just, or can I say something? I
So-
just wanted to comment on the improvements I've seen at Tenny Holmes, how awesome it's been. So,
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
believe,
this
yeah,
one.
sorry.
Well
But you
done.
can send,
You know what, include in your prayer.
yeah.
Now we thank you for all the improvements that
For
you're doing.
everyone at Tenny Home.
Specifically,
So, I just wanted to say thank you,
Thank
and thank you to the administration of Tenny Homes. It's been phenomenal.
Great, thanks. I appreciate you. All right.
Hey, Tim.
Moving on to an exciting celebration of excellence this evening. So we have a state qualifier for us tonight that has put in a lot of hours. I can vouch for myself because I've driven kids for a lot of early morning hours. So
I'm going to start by introducing our two coaches that are here. So we have Rylea Sanders and Claire Button, and they lead our cross-country teams at Bay City High School. And so I believe Rylea is going to share a little bit about the success story here.
So sorry, it's kind of lengthy, but I'll read it kind of fast because honestly, Tony is a great kid and he deserves everything that I have to say today. But Tony is a prime example of how to show how to set goals, work hard, and do whatever it takes to reach his goals. Tony actually enrolled as a 9th grader at Bay City High School. He wasn't with us before, but when he enrolled at Bay City High School, it was actually already past cross-country season, so he missed being able to run his freshman year. So he was a little bit behind as a sophomore. But when Tony started running as a sophomore, Coach Bud and I both knew that he had potential to be great, but he needed a lot of work on his running form, and it was something that we talked to him about every single day. Tony had a lot of runners that were above him when he was a sophomore that he had somebody to look up to and show him how to be great. And honestly, he ran with him, he worked for it, and he had his goals in mind. So Tony, as a sophomore, he ran somewhere in the mid-19 range, but then he went to track season, and every summer after track, he was building onto his base and running lots and lots and lots of miles. And when I say lots of miles, I mean hundreds of miles in the summertime, every single summer trying to build his base. During the track season, as for his junior year, he had a really great season, and he was really close to advancing to the state meet in track. But although that kind of pushed him back a little bit more this season because he knew his body needed to recover starting with us as a senior year. But Coach Bud and I told him to be patient with himself and that it would take time. But as long as he trusted the process and believed in Coach Bud and I and giving him the best workouts, that he would be ready in time for district. So Tony actually had a side runner all season, and it was one of my freshman boys. And honestly, they were the best duo for practice every single day. We never knew who was going to come out on top, but they both worked extremely hard. When they came to district week, we told both of them, look, we know you're both going to make it to regionals. I honestly don't know what's going to happen today. But then Tony looked at me and said, it's my senior year, Coach. I'm taking that district champ medal. So once we finished district, he did get first. And once we finished, we started getting ready for regionals. And Tony and I sat down and pulled all the Region 4 times to figure out what it would take to get him to state. We knew that we knew he had great potential at getting to state, but it was just staying healthy and just trusting it. So after regional meet, Tony actually ran, he got finished in the top 18, but then due to pulling out the qualifying state teams, he ended up finishing as the number 9 state individual, which qualified him to run at state. And I was very proud of how far he had come in the last couple of years to just show it was a dream come true to make it to the state meet. So at state this year, he did finish 106th place out of 152 with a time of 17:43. He had a really good first mile, second mile, he was set on pace to hit a PR. And then the rocky road just got him for a little bit. But I'm excited to see what he has in store, and right now we're just going to relax and get ready for track, and then hopefully we will be advancing to college to go run somewhere.
So Tony, if you and your coaches will stand up here in front of the board, we present the celebration of excellence to all of our students and competitors who make it to the state level, so congratulations.
There she is.
Okay.
Good job.
Great job.
Program success, tremendous program.
Well, this one,
Thank you, coaches. Thank you, Tony.
Thank y'all.
Congratulations. All right. It's always fun to see what our students are doing in and out of the classroom. Moving on, we have no public comments this evening, so we're going to move straight into LSG. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good. Good to hear.
Good to see you.
So, good to see all of you too. So looking at last month's work, we had a 142-minute meeting. 80 minutes of that was spent on student outcome related items, and so that was about 56.34% of the meeting. We had 5 board members present and 2 absent. We had 5 consent agenda items, and I couldn't see another item on the agenda that required deliberation and a vote, so that was 0. That's good. And our 2 goals appeared to be on target, and our 2 goal progress measures, 6 goal progress measures appeared to be on target as well. So any questions about last month? Okay. Just so you know, we meet in between every board meeting and plan. And the first thing we do is we talk about last month and how did it go, how can we improve, what did we learn from it. And so it was really a good meeting this month. And I think your participation in the last meeting challenged the administration to do their very best tonight. So we look forward to that. We're going to be looking at Goal 4 and Goal 5 tonight. Goal 4 is 7th grade math, getting them to the meets level in the STAR by 28 of 38%. We hope we exceed that. There are 3 goal progress measures. There's one for 4th grade, one for 5th grade, and one for 6th grade. So what we're going to do, when you also Goal 5 is about the freshman English. And so what we're going to do, since we have 3 principals presenting, we're going to have Anna come up and she's going to cover her goal progress measures from 4 and 5. Then Rose will do the same for 4 and 5, and then Mary will come up and Mary will do hers for the high school. So we're going to start with Anna and her report.
Hello everyone, good evening. So I'm going to start off with 4.1, the percentage of 4th grade students who score meets and above on CBA assessment in math will increase from 59% in September of 2024 to 60% by August of 2025. So if we go ahead and look at the baseline first, we are at 59, 57, 34, 82, 55, 11, and 84. And this is already where we're at based on our STAR scores back in May in 4th grade meets or above. So this is where we got our baseline. So then for our November 24, which is right now, and what we are presenting is we took our CBA 1 and CBA 2 and combined that with an average for meets and above. So under all, we are at 44%, Hispanic 45%, African American 21%, white 55%, ED 32%, SE 21%, and EL at 100%. For 4.2, which is 5th grade math, we will increase from 39% in September of 2024 to 40% by August of 2025. And so we're going to go ahead and look at our baseline, which comes out of our STAR scores already from May. And under all, we are at 39%, Hispanic 40%, African American 12%, 51%, ED 32%, SE 16%, EL 59%. And so this is meets and above STAR scores back in May. And for our November 24 presentation, which is today, we again have taken the average of CBA 1 and CBA 2. And we are at 59% under all, 59% for Hispanic, 47% for African American, 65% for white, 54% for ED, 36% for SE, and 65% for EL. And this is math, meets or above for 4th grade and 5th grade. Questions?
Took CBA 3 recently, right?
No, CBA 3 we take in the middle of week 1 of December, and it'll be ongoing to week 2 of December, and then week 3 will be all our celebrations.
I have a question for you, Anna. Last year, when you reported the scores at the beginning of the year, were you averaging the CBAs last year, or you just took the first one?
Just the first one.
So it'd be kind of hard to compare. But when we look at 4.2, the results this year are higher than the results were last year. On the 4.1, they're actually lower this year than they were last year. So I guess it's hard to compare that because it's not an average, right?
Right, last year was not an average.
Is there something different between the 4th grade and the 5th grade that makes it a little more challenging for the 4th graders?
So it's all based on, so it's last year's scores, so it's the scores from May, but I'm now using last year's 3rd graders who are now 4th graders. So it's gonna take the entire year of us teaching the curriculum so that we can get to that baseline that we already got back in May. Any other questions?
Just a comment, I know last year we watched real close when the curriculum and pacing guides, the order is set, guaranteed and viable curriculum. And I know that around this December time is when we hit crunch time last year. We've been set up with some concepts on fractions, and I know you guys are all over that. I know we keep our eye on the ball, we don't forget about last year. That was, fractions is huge and it's so difficult. So I know you guys have a lot of interventions going, and maybe you could tell us maybe about some things you have going on Saturdays and prime time, those types of things.
So every grade, so 4th and 5th grade have prime time once a day, every day. 4th grade is 45 minutes, 5th grade is 50 minutes. 3rd grade has prime time twice a day. So for sure, all the kids are getting prime time for math and prime time for reading. Because I cannot control, what happens before they get to THE, but I can control what they are doing and what they are learning when they get to THE, and I can control the amount of learning time and intervention time at THE, so that we decided to create 2 intervention times for all students. So last year we were splitting up our time because we only created 1 prime time for everyone, including 3rd grade, and so they were having to tear the kids apart, pick and choose, the reading teacher chooses, split our days. And so this year, just to make it all even and to make sure that everyone is receiving the same amount of time in reading and math, then all kids, when they go to math, they have intervention time, and then when they turn around to the PM, or they're going to math or reading, the same thing happens. Because the gap is not as much, right? Or in 4th grade and 5th, and that's something that
Any comments on kind of how prime time is set up or identified or focused on, anything that is, as we prepare for prime time, the approach to it?
So in 3rd grade, our focus is at the beginning of the year, all the 3rd graders are getting the really great reading screener. The really great reading is a screener, and then identifies the kids, those that are placed in a tier 2. It'll also give you if they are a tier 2 because they need assistance or more intervention on blending or on fluency. And so group our kids, and the teacher creates stations, and so they work on those kids based on however they were grouped, right? And that's for a really great reading. We'll do the screener again in January when we come back, and then we do an end of year screener in May to exit. All that data gets uploaded into Skyward. So next year, like we already had our data for our 3rd and 4th graders, so then it was just a continuation of where the kids had left off. If you go into Skyward, you will find our data in Skyward. It is a continuation every 3 weeks. We meet for RTI academics in 3rd grade for really great reading. In 4th and in 5th, it is a spiraling of the cheeks and how they have scored in the latest CDA or unit exam or Google formative assessments that the teachers use. We then just keep spiraling those cheeks to close any of those gaps.
And then on closing the gaps, any specifics on, I know we were featured in Region 3, actually I think it was TEA, I'm sorry, the TEA on the bilingual intervention piece. And I know that's not just in one place, that's a comprehensive program, but since it was recognized by TEA, just an opportunity to tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
So together with our Saturday tutorials that the kids come into for intense intervention, whether it's reading, math, any teachers that they are low on, we also invite our bilingual and EB kids, and so our bilingual and ESL teachers also attend Saturday tutorials, and we have what's called TELPAS Academies, and those teachers specifically focus on the 4 domains from TELPAS, the listening, the speaking, the reading, and the writing. So the test has become very complex because it's now all online, where before it was more like the teacher would score it. It's now all online, and the kids have to like speak into the microphone, it reports them, and so we have a program that teaches them how to do that, and it reports them. Yes, it was a good recording. No, it wasn't. You need to keep focusing on practicing your speaking, and so it tells them, you know, like, we're going to sound it out like this, we're going to sound it out like that, so that by the time the test comes, which is very intense and complex, then the kids have more practice, at least on that online piece of it, that it's not just a one shot and, oh, okay, like, I wish I could practice more. So we're continuously practicing all year long. We also have this little thing that goes on every day in every class, and so like we create different hashtags. And so one of the hashtags that we created this year was write a little, a lot every day in every class. And so like that's something we've rolled out this year. We're not asking the teachers to write dissertations or whole paragraphs, whole essays, you know, in one day. But if we start somewhere, write a little, a lot every day in every class, then it eventually is going to get to where we need it to be. So you will see writing going on in all of our classrooms.
I would mention also for the group, I know we'll probably cover this when we talk about opportunities for LSG, but I wanted to let the principals know, I know we're meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. and I think Harry Brooks, leader of our parent liaison, had some good ideas for some community outreach meetings. I think he's got some great ideas to enfranchise community meetings. He referred to them as satellite meetings. And so I'll share a little more about that. And I know the schedules are very busy, and LSG is, you know, we've got a virtual town hall coming up, but I can't wait to share that with you, and just the energy that the parent liaisons are bringing right now, and for Mr. Brooks to come forward and say, I've got an idea, so we'll bring that to you all tomorrow.
Thanks for informing us. Does anyone else have any questions about 4.1 and 4.2?
You said earlier we all have prime time in reading and math,
For 3rd grade, yes,
the
ma'am.
3rd grade. Okay,
We do have prime time for 4th and 5th. It's just not a double prime time, it's just one single prime time, and the kids are split up accordingly.
okay. And I think I heard you correctly. You said the control was done on your campus.
teen homes, but part of that tracking, if they were fifth graders going on to the sixth grade, do you or, what kind of communications are y'all having between schools? Say that your fifth grader may have done well on your campus, but he gets to the next level or something, so are y'all talking to try to get them
So
back?
we're not actually sharing trackers, like I don't share my tracker with her, but we do share our star scores. And what we are most closely working on to aligning is our resources. So like the online programs, the online resources that we have, that a lot of our students also use during prime time, after school or Saturday academies, it's like iExcel that I know she uses a lot. We use Lexia, so they use Lexia. We're under STEM scopes. They have changed STEM scopes, but that's perfectly fine. So aligning our resources, at least at that point, we're doing that. Do I share my tracker with her? No, I don't share my tracker with her. But our data is shared.
I've always been taught that no question is a stupid question, so I'm gonna ask a stupid question. Why not? Are those
We
trackers?
just develop different trackers.
Do you think, just off the top, do you think at one point, if y'all would start doing that we would see better results? The resources are fine. I get that one. But my thing is always, and I know that the elementary schools, the Terry and all of them communicate, but your school and junior high are those stages where we either get them or we lose them. So I think if there was some kind of communication, whether it be sharing and tracking of particular students, not all over, but between the two of you, and I know that y'all will keep it there, would that not be helpful?
Yes, ma'am, it would.
So every student, the prime time, I think I missed the prime time, reading and math, and that's third grade on. Our prime time is every student,
Every grade level.
every grade level.
In third grade, they have double prime time. All the students get prime time for reading, and all the students get prime time for math in third grade,
In third grade.
because they have a double prime time. In fourth and in fifth, they have one prime time.
During your intervention time, for the kids that don't need it, particularly need it, what are you doing with those kids?
So when these new standards came out with approaches, meets, and masters, all kids meet a certain level of intervention because we take our kids from either low approaching, low non-approaching to approaching, low approaching to high approaching, approaching to meets, and meets to masters. And those kids that are at meets and masters, our goal is to sustain meets and masters. We either keep you at meets or move you from meets to masters. If you are at masters, our goal is to keep you at masters because that is how we will get our most growth points. So everyone will need some type of intervention based on where you scored. If you scored at non-approaching, our goal is to not get you to approaching. Approaching, there's two levels of approaches, low approaching and high approaching, so we want to move you from there to here. And then once you've already approached, we want to get you to meets. If you're at meets, we want to get you to masters. If you're already at masters, our goal is to keep you at masters.
Okay, then just one more, and then I'm done. I'm looking under the baseline for African American. You set it at 12%. And in November, they was up to 47. All right?
Are you at
4.2.
on 4.2?
4.2
So the baseline is STAR test from last year.
from last
Yeah.
year. So really, we're not on 24. So is this 47% is what they are now?
CBA.
Yes, CPAs, for the CPAs.
And just looking back at last year, that's double where they were last year at the same time for African American students.
Are there any other questions? All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
I've got 5.2.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I forgot we were.
Okay. The overall percent of fifth grade RLA students that score meets grade level or above on the curriculum-based assessment will decrease from 53% in September of 2024 to 55% by August of 2025. So if you look at our baseline, again, these are from our STAR scores back in May. 53% for all, 54 for Hispanic, 68 for white, 43 for ED, 19 for SE, 19 for African American, and 51 for ED. November 24, right now, 41% for all, 38% for Hispanic, 34% for white, 58% for ED, 46% for SE, 12% for African American, and 31% for ED.
That's a drop. I wonder what the answer is, and that,
Same thing, this was a CBA 1-2 effort.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it is.
Baseline is set on the STAR test.
Yes.
It's not apples to apples, right?
Correct. On any of these averages on 5.3 or the 4.12, are you seeing that like the first one was a lot lower than the second one, or are you seeing they're both kind of, there's the small jump in between the two, or?
I can say that our first one, for the most part, our first CBA will always be higher. Yeah, because it's a review and the easiest tweaks, like the foundation that you need to have from there, we can keep building. Then the second CBA gets a little bit more complex, and with the third CBA, the one for the third 6 weeks being the most difficult one in math, because like he said, it's fractions, and it's fractions in third, fourth, and fifth. It's just, it takes it a step above in the level of rigor, right? Like in third grade, they're introducing fractions, and so like you can take a pizza and very easily, you know, you can be able to do a fraction with it, where in fifth grade, they are starting multiplying, you know, things like that. Well, I know that every single math classroom that I go into right now, that's doing fraction, and the teacher stresses so much about fractions. It's like a huge unit that will then spiral into the rest of the coming units for the rest of the year. In reading, by the time we finish the third 6 weeks, they've covered all the genres. And most complex genres are taught the third 6 weeks. And then when we come back in January, all we do is pair up different genres. They've been taught, I think,
The
all.
second semester is basically refreshing.
Yes,
And
compare this one with that one, and what's the difference between this one and that one. So all of the first semester we just teach.
We take that third CPA to the first week of their pack, or 2 week holiday.
No, so we're taking, the third CBA, at the middle of the first week in December.
Oh, December.
And, yeah, and the second week of December, when we come back in January, it's gonna be screeners.
Yeah, you said
Yes.
December, I thought January, that's my fault.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions regarding 5.3?
Yeah, what was last year, Tony? For this one?
Last year was a little bit higher on the first one, but last year we were just using the very
The very
first,
first,
the beginning of the year CBA, which now we're using this average. So, like she said, the first score would have been a little bit higher. And it's not a lot. It's like, when you look at all students last year, the beginning of the year score was 51%. And now this year it's 41%. It is a little bit lower this year. but you got a different group of kids and a different way of presenting the data this year too.
Right.
All right, are there any other questions in regards to 5.3? Thank you.
Okay, now Rose is going to come up and she's going to present the information for 4.3 and then some information from 4.5.
How are you? Doing well. Thank you for presenting this evening.
I had to check and see that going through your mind. I was about to leave this, I was about to leave this meeting real quick. I'm like, I'm out, I got a golden ticket. See you later.
Okay, so, goals the percentage of sixth grade math students who score B or above on the CBA math will increase from 30% in September of 2024 to 32% by August of 2025. So our baseline was very similar, the same thing as what Tenny Holmes had. It was the star results from the fifth grade students. So the baseline was 30% were meets or above for all students, 31% for Hispanic, 11% for African American, 33% for white, 24% economically disadvantaged, 13% for SPED, and 43% for English language learners. Now, our November data that you see on there, this is the average of the first 4 CBAs. So that's the average that you see there. So average for the first 4 CBAs overall was 39% were meets or above for all students, 39% for Hispanic, 28% for African American, 40% for white, 34% for economically disadvantaged, 30% for SPED, and 31% for English language learners. What I did on the bottom part there, since it is the average of the first 4 CBAs, you have the individual CBA data there as well. I did break it down to approaches, meets, and masters, so you have that information to see just where they are on that. Our goal is at 32%, so for the first 2 CBAs, we're shy of that, but you can see that it does increase up to the 4th CBA. What we're doing with our math course, 6th grade, actually for all our students, that we do have the addition of a math class this year. It's an actual class that's added to the student's schedule for those who did not meet approaches on the previous year's math star assessment. So they do have it as part of their schedule built in. We're continuing with our 6th grade math team planning with the district instructional coaches as well as Region 3 support. We're able to re-implement Panther time, and we are doing that basically effective October 21st. So it's been a little bit 3 weeks so far. And that we do with target student groups. In addition, that re-implementation allows us for our content area PLCs and our content team planning sessions, which allow content teachers to plan together as a grade level, and also with the vertically as well too in the same content. We also still continue with Saturday academies. We have 8 per semester. The focus is on our telecast and also 6th grade math, but we do have that availability to add additional students for different content areas. And we're continuing with IXL for our target skill areas for content areas. So that's the math side. Want me to go into your first and then take questions, or?
We can flip it over and then we can go back.
Yeah, flip it over. You got both on. Looks very much the same on the setup on it. The overall percentage of 8th grade reading language arts students that score meets grade level or above on the CBAs will increase from 40% in August of 24 to 52 by August of 25. Again, the baseline is the STAR data from the same group of students from last year, so this is 7th grade Eagle Art STAR data. The baseline was 48% for all, meets or above, 49% Hispanic, 71% white, 44% economically disadvantaged, 8% SPED, 29% African American, 32% APs. Our November 24 data is we have the average of the first 2 CBAs, because the ELR is basically doing the CBA at the end of the 6 weeks. So that's why there's 2 versus 4 for math. The average of it is 69% are meets or above for all students, 65% for Hispanic, 85% white, 63% economically disadvantaged, 29% SPED, 71% African American, and 44% EBs. With the information down there too, I had it on the math as well as with the ELR, so you can see what the focus was, what focus was for each of the CBAs. And again, the breakdown of approaches, meets, and masters for each one of those CBAs. The interventions are pretty much basically the same for math and for reading, with our our reading support. We're actually having the teachers work with Region 3 for how they're going to do the rubrics for evaluating the extended writing responses. We're also getting AI, working with different ways that this teachers can incorporate AI to help them with actually grading their writing responses, and actually working to see how we can better help them in the classroom.
So a question,
Yes.
maybe I misheard you. For the baseline, you said that the baseline on 5.2
Yes.
is the star score from 7th grade for these 8th graders.
Yes, and it's the same thing for math too. That's the 5th grade star scores. That's the baseline. So it's the same cohort of kids.
Is it like that on every, that's not what was at Tenny Homes, correct?
I don't know.
No, no for high school.
Chris, did you have a comment on any of it? On the CBAs as far as the baseline for Tenny Homes versus the middle school? I don't know if that's, just want to make sure the question is answered.
So are we asking if, so at Tenny Homes, it's not, you're not following the cohort, right?
Right.
Right. Because you wouldn't have that data for 3rd grade.
Correct. So that at the junior high it is, but not at the high school?
No, because the same thing's true, the test is not the same, so we can't follow it.
So there's the data that you see for the CBAs is the same kiddos with the baseline data.
Right, okay. I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly.
Yes.
Wait, that's not. It's like there's been, I mean, it's 2 CBAs, whereas your star is more comprehensive at the end of the year.
Yes.
But out of the gate, it looks like 8th grades, you've had them obviously for a couple of years, and so they're used to what you're doing and how things are going on your campus. And I know you said y'all vertically align and do stuff 6th grade, so definitely is showing that what you're doing is working.
And then last shot too, with the writing piece of it was a lot newer, of course. So they have that experience with it now, and it's incorporated in the CBA, so they do have those writing responses in the CBAs as well. The teachers have a better understanding of how to evaluate that as well too, and how to better help the students with that piece as well. So we just have a better overall understanding of it. This year our semester exams, because last year was the first year of semester exams, they're going to be more comprehensive this year as well too. Those are scheduled out last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday before the Christmas break. So I'll have that information for you as well, so you can see more of a comprehensive this semester.
Even looking at your 4.3, the 6th grade students, it's still a good on grade. Sorry, go ahead.
Is the jump in your CBAs, has any of that correlated with you getting back, like having more intervention, or is it just because they're getting used to what you're doing?
I think there are also to be honest with you, the teachers comfort level on certain areas, because each one of those units is a different unit. Personally knowing the teachers, the CBA 4, they have a really good feel for that information on it. And also the kiddos by that time are getting used to how it's running, how the CBAs are working, how it's going in the junior high. The 6th grade, that first part, like, oh my gosh, I got to go to 8 different classes. I got to figure out this. Where am I going? How do things work? I don't have an hour and a half for a certain teacher. I've got, now with our Panther time for introducing it, this 45 minutes per period. That's it. So they have to make use of every single minute that they do have.
I will say I did go to the campus spotlight, and some amazing things happening on my campus. So thank you for what you're doing, and teachers at the junior high, I know they're done here, but some great things happening. So, and it shows in your scores.
Thank you.
If you look at the results, at the beginning of the year last year as compared to this year, a lot of times they're doubling the results. I got a question for you, Rose, on 5.2. How many African American students do you have in the 8th grade this year?
Actually, I can pull the number out of the number of students there. I didn't put on the
Can
same
you
one.
guess? Is it like compared to last year, is it more or less?
It is about the same.
Because you were at 15% of last year's group, but you're at 71% this year. That's fantastic.
The focus that we had that we worked on last year too is doing writing across all the content areas, which was introducing that race strategy to all the content areas, not just ELAR. So it's getting more familiar with that. So by 8th grade, they have that, more familiarity with it. And I know as 6th and 7th build up as the elementary school are incorporating that too. They'll have that base to start off with when it does.
Are there any other questions for? Right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, now Mary Lynn is going to talk about 5.1.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
How are you?
Great. So 5.1, our goal number 5 really is related to English 1. And as stated, when we come back and we've had the revised TEKS, even with the addition of some additional writing and the things that we're doing across the curriculum, the 8th grade test is not the same as the 9th grade test. And of course, we found that our 10th grade test we have better results on than the 9th grade test. Could be over the course of time that they learn things along the way. Shocked when you get to high school and you have more writing to do along with it. But then in addition to that, the freshman level of maturity. So when we've been having our conversations with all staff, we've been really working on trying to do some cross-curricular things. So not just across our grade levels, but we have really focused on academic language building with STEMs, with word banks, and also with the building of not just the language that is written, but also the language that is spoken. Because if you can't speak it, you can't write it. And so we've been working really hard with that. I would say that probably our biggest celebration is going to come in the use of that related to some of our sub-pops. What you're going to see, again, is that the baseline really is related to last year's English 1 students, and where our goal for them last year was 55%, we reached 57%. So we did adjust the annual targets to increase them a little bit more than what we had originally done in this first year of the goal last year. What we're seeing is that really the work that the teachers are doing to grow through the process. Rosie mentioned about attending professional development, learning a little bit more about the new test. It's not going away, so we're going to have to accept it as it is. It may continue to evolve, and they may continue to move the target on us. So we have to kind of be on our game. So we definitely did some scoring training, really kind of looking at how are we scoring versus how is the test scoring. And again, same thing, we combined CBAs. So when we combined our CBA, we're looking at CBA 1 and CBA 2. I already have a glimpse of CBA 3. It's not ready yet. It won't be ready until the end of this week. But the first one, as Anna stated, is a review of foundational skills in addition to an introduction to the fiction text. And then we added nonfiction text, so we're doing multiple genres. And so we do have cross-genre. The other thing that we did was we really did some reflection on what is reading and what is writing, and what is the amount of points that are received for each of those. When we did our pre-assessment, we separated them. So not in this data, but we did a pre-assessment at the beginning of the year. We did all multiple choice, and we had kids that were definitely in about the 80%. We did the writing part, and 4% of them passed. But it's a reading test that includes writing, where you must read to be able to write. If you have not read the piece, then you can't write about it. And so I may have shared in our board meeting over the summer that we had numerous students who scored 0 on their open-ended responses and on their full-length essays. So we have also changed the game a little bit, and we were looking at the November, my teachers were like, don't get excited. It is 63%, but it is an average, and one of the other things that we have done is we've changed the scoring game. So we are no longer scoring the multiple choice with the same value as the writing. In fact, we've reversed it. You can't get a score unless you write. So that part happens first, and all students are scored on the writing alone. And then the multiple choice questions count as bonus points. So in the coursework, in the class, ideally you want students to be academically successful, but you want it to match up with how they're going to perform on the STAR test. And if at the meets level, we're looking at more like you have to have around the 60%, and that's like a flex room, it's more like 56%. But if you have to have about 60%, you really can't get that with missing all the points on the writing part. So we're carrying a little bit more value in that, which means that the students have to actually focus on the reading in order to be able to write, and they have to write to get a score, and then they elevate their score with what they have done well all along, which is the foundational skills that they were taught in elementary and in junior high, the revising and editing things, some basic reading comprehension things and identification of details. but the inferencing part has a lot more value. So what you're gonna see for November on 5.1 is that we are at 63% for all, we're at 66% for Hispanic, 66% for white, 60% for our economically disadvantaged. We're up to 21%. This is a big excitement for us, for our special education students who were at 0% last year. And then 50% for African American students and 65% for our emergent bilingual. Something to share in that piece is that CBA 2, the retest, actually got our emergent bilingual to 100%. That's not in here because it was a retest, but that's something else that we're also doing is we're not settling for what the score was on the CBA, using it, teachers are using that and having data conversations. I had a data conversation this afternoon where we are looking at what did the students do, what did they write, how can we craft lessons that are different so that we can reteach the concept in a different way and then give them another opportunity. So CBA 3 is going on now, and CBA 3's retest will happen when we return from Thanksgiving. And then, as Rosie explained, our semester exam will be the cumulative part, where we will have the multiple choice part with reading and writing, and then also the full essays that are included. In addition to that, we have added, which is really exciting, a retired teacher as an English tutor. So she comes 2 days a week, and it's definitely made a difference with being able to have the immediate feedback in some of our larger group settings, and for some of our students that may not identified in a special pop, but are maybe lower level learners in a regular classroom without additional content support. And so we're being able to provide that in the moment. It's not really, planned or staged, but it truly is aggressive monitoring. And so as you see it, then you address it. And that because that is a retired teacher who's done a lot of work with us for EOC, it's been very successful. And I would say that we're seeing some even of our special education students and our emergent bilingual students getting that additional support, that it's really helping elevate our scores. In addition to that, I wanted to share that when we are really kind of staging what we're doing moving forward, this is poetry right now, so it may change what the score looks like. They read The Road Not Taken on their CBA number 3 today, and the question had to do with internal conflict, and there were lots of things that were evolving that are going to be reteaching moments, but it's also just a challenging time for them to approach a different genre and it being asked, different things of them, but they still have to be able to read the text in order to be able to write about it. And if they don't understand what they've read, then we have to reteach the concepts. And so particularly reteaching some things that are related to that genre particularly will be part of the next few weeks. Any questions?
Are emerging bilingual students also calculated under the Hispanic tab?
They could be.
They could be. Mm-hmm. And then are special ed same if we have
Could
Hispanic
be.
or white?
Yes, there are quite a few students that may fall underneath.
And
more
then
than ones in
economically
private.
disadvantaged the same, right?
Yes.
So those three populations.
Are repeats of, yes, absolutely, good point. Something to share that I forgot to mention about our emergent bilingual students. Any student who is identified as a beginner or as a student who did not advance on their TELPAS and did not maybe score, and TELPAS is what's used to rate their language proficiency. Some of them have been in our country for 4 years and have not advanced in their language proficiency. In addition to that, some of them have not passed their STAR test. We have a unique class at Bay City High School since we no longer have the push-in support. For EB, our ESL teacher teaches a section of English 1 and English 2 stacked on top of each other. It's an innovative course where we are teaching the concepts and the TEKS that are for English 1 and English 2 are exactly the same, except for the type of writing in one part of the text. So she's able to differentiate that, but those students have her, a few of them have her twice a day in the ESL class as well as in their English class, so they don't get lost in the class size of 25 to 27 regular English 1 students. They are English 1 and 2 students combined together, closer to about 15 students in that class. So it's really made a very big difference, and that teacher is doing very well in the growth of those students we're seeing already.
Any other questions in regards to 5.1?
So just a little something to sneak in, if we don't have any questions. I have something in addition to share with you guys. One of the things related to English language arts that we made a change in was in the course sequence for early college. So we had a number of our early college students, given of course that they had not approached junior and senior level English, had not had the experience of writing more than just for a STAR test. And basically, STAR test is the lowest level expectation, whereas performance on the TSI is what assures you to be college ready. So one of the things that we made a change for that we wanted you to be aware of for our early college program is we pushed English in sooner. And so we have a cohort now that starts where they take the dual English as sophomores. So we get that STAR stuff over with and the basic concepts, but then by the time they're sophomores, we're doing college level writing so that they can be successful in the other content areas as well. And so most of what you see here about early college is going to be the same, but some of the things that you'll see related to our cohorts, we're now in cohort 5. And cohort 5, really exciting, we're continuing to see the growth of so many programs on our campus, our dual credit program, a little side note at the bottom, which we've already shared with you guys, and those teachers have been here, but we expanded our dual credit offerings because we expanded our staff, and we grew our own staff in order to be able to do that. In addition to that, that's how we kind of created it in our English department. So our English 1 teachers are really working together with English 2 teachers, and then our English 2 teacher is also teaching not only to prepare students for STAR, but also for TSI, and they're taking the college course for 1301 and 1302 in their English 2 class. We had a creative arrangement this year, so we actually now have cohorts that are sharing the same course. So we have 36 dual credit students that are in the lit course, but we'll fade that back so that there won't be that many students in a class. But right now, juniors and seniors are together taking the lit course so that we can get them through the course sequence as it is. And then next year, we'll be evolving into an advanced writing course for English 4, so they can still get a dual credit and get their English 4 credit, and it'll be an advanced writing course that really is targeted at writing in the content areas for the college level. So they'll be able to produce better writing in things like their economics courses and their government courses, because they'll have that opportunity to have the writing support that meets the English 4 TEKS, but also helps them get their advanced skills, because many of them are looking at pursuing more than just a bachelor's degree, but a master's degree as well. So we'll be able to teach multiple types of research, those kinds of things, which is going to be really neat. We also have some other data on here for you that I just wanted to share at this time related to the certifications that the early college students are still getting. So sometimes we have that concern, like because they're only in the core classes, are they still getting to have opportunities to explore through the extracurriculars as well as through the elective courses? And of course they are, and still getting some of the additional certifications. So excited about the advancement of those things. Mr. Townsend and I have recently had a conversation about moving along some of our CTE coursework, so that even though they're prepared for college, they might also have a trade that gets them through college. Because while we might be paying for their early college, what's left will be theirs to pay for, and their families don't always have that opportunity. So the scholarships that are out there will be definitely more accessible to them with some of the credentials that not other individuals have. So I wanted to provide that information, and of course just to add on that Avid is a part of our early college program as well. And much of the writing that we are doing is founded in the skills that come through the Avid coursework. Any questions related to early college?
I know we graduated our first
Yes.
cohort in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
It says that 11 earned that associate's degree. Out of those 11, do you know, did all of them go on to finish to a 4-year university to finish, or what is the?
We do have all of them in college coursework now, yes.
So they're all pursuing.
They are pursuing, yes. And it looks like we're on track for the next cohort to be in the same boat. A lot of them are applying to the colleges, they're getting ready as seniors to make their acceptance. But there's been a lot of offers already, so we're really excited about those kids too.
How many do you have for this year's cohort?
This year's cohort has 20. It's an increase of we normally have around 15. But we had a little extra funds at that time, and so we have 2 cohorts, 2 and 3, both have 20 students in them. So over the next 2 years, we hope to have 20 of them earning their associate's degree as well.
Are you able to keep in contact with some of these and see the benefit for this for them, not the credits that they get, but that it's beneficial for what they're pursuing a degree in, or,
Yes.
what it's?
I'm glad you asked that. So one of the benefits we have on our campus a college and career liaison. We work very closely with the teachers on campus, but then also with the counselors to really kind of part off the duties and responsibilities. And by having a college and career liaison, she is definitely, in very close contact. She's helping them with some of the planning, like definitely this past was first semester, like on college campus by yourself. Some of not only like the responsibility of organizing your calendar, but not having anybody there, like somebody not well, reaching out, like, oh, and then a suggestion, there might be a 24-hour clinic nearby, like go there now before you end up missing 3 sections, of a class. And so definitely being that we have a small school, and I know a lot of people think, well, it's a big school because it's the biggest one in Matador County with the best opportunities here, but we still are a small school atmosphere where we have definitely made connections with those students and still providing some, basically I would call it like on-site support, because we have that relationship. And to be honest, we want them back in our community. We want them back here to be successful, whether it is directly as a part of the Bay City community or in the outskirts or some of the businesses that contribute. And we would love to even have a couple of them come back and be educators and work in our district. So we're making those connections for sure. And I think some of it also starts with, y'all are very familiar with our Avid teacher who retired, but she treated them like a mother. And we worked really hard. Coach Pate now has carried on kind of her legacy, and he's working very hard to really, he's treating them maybe a little bit more with tough love, but definitely those connections, and you're constantly seeing them seeking that extra support. And it really has been, so there are some colleges, and I think there's maybe one that I spoke to, and I don't, that's a cohort that's getting ready. We talked about some of the colleges that might have Avid on campus, just to be thinking about that might be a deciding factor for you. That if Avid is still, could be part of your life, that it might be a way for you to continue your success when you don't have a lot of other support systems. And there are Avid college programs out there. That's really nice.
Are there any other questions?
Could you comment on the value and how you use, we hear about screeners versus CBAs, and just talk about how you use the CBAs and how it drives instruction?
Sure. So we have done a lot of work with, I love the fact that Mr. Townsend has been able to support us with the instructional facilitators. We have content experts in our district that really support us district-wide in the content area. So I'll use the example of Jackie Ramsey. She works with our science team very closely. Whereas a screener might, just have a lot of explorative research out there related to what you might be doing. We're in a program now where we have a curriculum that has been effective, especially for biology, and has been tried and true. But when we get our first group of kids and then they don't want to memorize some of the things that you have to memorize about parts of a flower and the things that really are integral to science, we struggle with some of the things that they have to do for content pieces. Of course, the best things out there are the released test items. So we have tried to vet through which released test items can we use and put on the CBAs that are going to be true assessments versus which ones are we going to save for things like a benchmark, and which ones are we going to utilize in class for a daily bell ringer or something that you spiral through as a repeat of instruction. So having an instructional facilitator like Jackie Ramsey, she's able to spend her time working through those pieces and then working individually with the teacher. We have a 3rd-year teacher who's teaching most of our biology coursework. She spends quite a bit of time with her pre-unit. So we're building the test before the assessment, before we're actually teaching it. So she spends quite a bit of time looking at, well, what was our CBA last year? Is there anything that's changed in the involvement of the test this year? Do we want to change a test item based on what we noticed about how kids performed on those types of items? And then we create a good quality test that we really then kind of craft our instruction to. And then once we've done that, we look at the data. She's also then on campus when we get the CBA data, and she leads the data meetings with our biology teachers for them to specifically look at on which TEKs did students perform well, which test items, and then the continual process of that. And that's just an example. Jada Townsend is doing it as well with our social studies teachers and our ELAR teachers. And then for math, Jackie does it as well. So really being able to utilize that. Of course, then additional facilitators, so we definitely have had Epi as a key role in our English language arts, because then she has instructional expertise related to the Emergent Bilingual Program and being able to have those ongoing conversations. But we're really intentional about creating assessments that are closely aligned to the real assessment, and then again, as I mentioned, closely scored to the way that they are scored.
Are those you said those facilitators are district-wide?
So they serve
all-
the district. I get them about 1 day a week, but they're very available to me, just a phone call away or an email away, especially as the teachers are kind of vetting some things, and to the teachers more so than me. I mean, I may come in when I've looked at something, but on the fly, on the go, they are really just constant conversations and discussions, and definitely it's been an advantage, given that in certain circumstances we don't have the opportunity to go outside of the district for professional growth. Sometimes they're going and getting it and bringing it back to us. Jackie did go and attend with my teacher, so we were really intentional about trying to build the rigor in the biology and utilizing a new program. So we actually have, junior high did a great job of being able to use some materials that my teachers weren't really open-minded to at first, because it was like a change in their curriculum and something new. But then when we look at the benefit of having a few additional test items, once you learn how to use it, then you feel more comfortable with it. So they did that as well, and we'll continue to see some of those CBAs evolve with the use of some of that additional material.
So when she visits, and you mentioned the data piece, she comes and presents the data, that informs intervention based on the.
It does. Truthfully, there's a little pre-work for it, so when she comes, the teachers have done the data dig prior to, every teacher on their own. I have an expectation that they have the autonomy of doing that, so that they are freely using it on an ongoing basis. It's not just let me wait for somebody to come hand me the data, but they do it on their own. I think Ms. Corman trained them to do that before she left. But it was constant peek into how our students doing, and then when she comes, it's actually an informed conversation. When we went to the leisure school training with TASSB, the math and the English teachers were very intentional about being reflective and how that data talk works. And then, of course, Mr. Townsend, we had already talked as a district about carving out some specifics of what a data talk would look like and what the report from it would look like. So maybe something that I could share in a future time when we come back, just to see what those conversations look like and how that intervention evolves. Because they're looking at particular test items, and then like I said, sometimes it's a spiraling of things. But what's happening right now is they're choosing their students to be in their intervention groups for next semester based on their performance here in the fall. We did our intervention in the fall for retesters. Retesters continue to be subpar performance, and it's just because they're no longer in the course. So they don't take any of these CBAs, and that's why we were intentional about tracking this goal. The English 1 scores you see here are not the same that are reported to the state. These are English 1 scores for first-time testers only that are in the curriculum now. We do have students who still test on the English 1 star because they have passed the course, just not passed the assessment. And so they're moving on. And they were in our fall intervention courses because we were still trying to provide them intervention. But at this point, they will be having to come to after-school tutorials or Saturday academies because we will be focusing the time that we have remaining on our first-time testers that need the intervention.
I like a lot going on after school and Saturdays.
Our teachers are really up to after-school this year. It's been very impactful.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, so a couple of other just discussion points. Were there any, Joe, you had mentioned the community engagement opportunity that was had in the last month or so, I believe in your comments.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, are you referring to the campus spotlight as well as the, I think there was a lot of community as well as at the professional development day. They had community set up at the campus spotlight.
Excellent. So is there an opportunity at these places for reflection on your vision and goals as a board? Were you able to take advantage of that?
We did talk about it briefly, but it wasn't anything on the agenda. It's just something that was spoken about.
Okay. Yeah. So that's great though, that you got the community coming in on those things. Now, I understand we're going to have like a virtual town hall coming up, possibly coming up soon. If not the 3rd, maybe we'll have a different date for it. That would be a great opportunity during this quarter.
Yes.
To really represent. That's good. Excellent. So, and what we're trying to do is make sure this year that we've got something each quarter, right? Because we don't have another board evaluation until January.
Right.
So that is time. Another thing I wanted to share with you, I put this article in your folder this time. This is Dr. Lyons' dissertation for his doctorate.
That's not it. It's like 8 pages long, I have it.
Yeah, I already had it.
That's part of it.
Yeah, so at any rate, I've got this for you, and I highlighted some important points that I think kind of summarize the effectiveness of Lone Star governance. And a lot of this data was collected from Region 3 schools and compared. And if you look over the highlighted areas and even some of the charts and graphs that are contained here, one of the things that just stands out is when districts implement the research that's in Lone Star governance with fidelity, and the superintendent and the board both apply themselves, the results are going to show improvement. And I know I had a district recently, they asked me a question about that because somebody was a naysayer and they were saying, well, there's districts that do this, that they don't show growth. And hey, you know what, that's true. Because they just don't do it. They don't implement it. And I can remember, and I know that James and Mark were there at the very first board meeting I attended when we were doing the HB3 goals. This is before we even entered into Lone Star governance. I believe Trent was there that night too. And just to watch you grow, this is the LSG coaching piece I'm going to bring to you right now. To watch you grow as a board and as a district over these years has been beautiful. Last night I got home after a board meeting, and my wife and I normally don't talk about school business, but she's probably like the best dyslexia specialist on the planet. And so she asked me about this district I went to visit because it was our first monitoring night. And I told her, well, they all loved it. They thought it was awesome. For me, it was very rough. I thought it was rough. I didn't think it was all that great. They thought it was wonderful. And then, so we got into this conversation about this article and doing it with fidelity, and invariably it comes to talking about BCISD. And she just pelted me with questions about, well, what are they doing? What are they doing? How are they getting there? And it gave me an opportunity to express, basically kind of like what Mary Lynn and the principals have been saying and what we see, what we observe. And your questions tonight and your engagement with the administration, it drives everything. And I really appreciate it. I just want to express to you how much I appreciate what you're doing as a district, as a team, as a leadership team with the board and the administration. I think the sky's the limit. And you guys just keep doing what you're doing. And I think we're going to see even more growth and more tremendous results as we go forward. So anyway, my wife was like very impressed with what you're doing, as I am as well. So thank you very much, and I believe that's everything I had.
Thank you. A couple things before we close out this portion of our meeting. Team of 8, I know we tried to schedule it for this month. December is seeming to be a little bit of a couple meetings that we'll end up needing to have, one being the virtual town hall, and then another business meeting that looks like we're going to end up needing to have. And so looking at possible dates for January. I know January has several different meetings as well, but would it be possible for y'all to look at your calendars to add a team of 8 training before our January board meeting? I believe that was one of the dates, Tony, that you gave us that would work.
Yeah, I'm going to look at it.
Before that, I'm trying to look at the date. Before that board meeting, so if y'all would just look at your calendars, it's the 21st, our board meeting that month is the 21st of January, to be able to do a team of 8 that hour. I think it's an hour, correct? Or is it 2? Is it?
The time doesn't really, usually it's an hour, but
Okay.
We haven't really identified a topic yet.
Correct.
So, I mean, if we have an hour or hour and a half, I think it'll be more of a conversation this time than anything.
Okay.
So,
So if y'all will just look at your calendars, please, and let me know, and we can get that scheduled, hopefully very quickly, so it doesn't get booked up.
For the 21st before the group, like 5 -ish.
Yeah. So
that first week of January works pretty well.
that's 6, 7, 8.
6th, I'm in Hallettsville.
Okay, so there's also options to add, and I know there's several things, so if y'all will look at your calendars, I'll send some dates tomorrow morning. And if we can solidify something maybe by the end of the week, that would be great for the month of January. And then the other thing that Dr. Mack and I had spoken about was the town hall. So doing that town hall possibly, what, the
We-
10th, 11th, somewhere in that.
Right, we'd sent out a tentative date, I want to say it was the 3rd for that, and that's
Yes.
right after we get back from Thanksgiving. And we do have one item of business that we would like, it will not be long, we could combine that even with the virtual and take care of that business. It would just be one item that's time sensitive.
Third.
On the 3rd.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, we want to push it away.
We want to push it back to the next week.
Yeah.
Get your employees that night.
Oh, okay. So what if we push back to that following week,
About the 10th.
the 10th,
Yep.
December 10th, to do a quick business meeting, as well as if you're able to stay for the town hall. The only question I have, if we do stay, if we have more than a quorum, last year we were particular not to have a quorum for the town hall, so we just need to make sure we posted appropriately. Okay, so if we'll get that switched over to the 10th.
That works better.
Yeah, I think everybody. Is that good with everybody?
I'll speak for Troy, sounds good.
Thank you all very much, this is very helpful.
He all changed the way we work. We lost some guys.
Okay. Okay.
That's good now.
Okay, well, hopefully it'll stay that course. All right, is there a motion to be made for LSG? Just to accept the, all
I'll make a motion to accept LSG.
right, there's a motion on the table, is there a second to his motion?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second, any further conversations? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, we are going to go into reports. So, Bay City ISD RLA/literacy framework, strong foundations.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Mr. Townsend is here with us.
Good evening,
Hello,
everybody.
sir, how are you?
Good. So you may or may not remember, last year we mentioned that we had applied for a grant to develop a literacy framework for the district. And I just want to give you a little bit of history on that. And then what you have, and it was in your board book as well, but I wanted to give you a hard copy. The second page of that is the actual literacy framework that was developed by the teachers and the administrators in the district. The very last page is the meat of that framework. So there was a round of grants that were available last year through LASSO. It was LASSO 2.0 it was called. And so there were a number of things that you could apply for under those grants. You could apply for literacy framework, math framework. There were other supports, extended day programs. But knowing what our goals were, and especially the board goals of literacy and numeracy being a very key component of what our goals are, we applied to enter in for supports to develop a literacy framework. And so we did get awarded that grant, and we moved pretty fast because the majority of districts that got the grant didn't start into the work of creating that framework until this year. We developed our committee, we had our leadership team, which was comprised of campus administrators and myself and the facilitators, and they chose people on their campus. There was at least one RLA, Reading Language Arts teacher from each grade level that was on that committee, as well as special education from those campuses and emerging bilingual staff. And so the development of that framework, the very first thing that happened was is you have, everybody has to go through a training, and it's called research-based instructional strategies. And the research-based instructional strategies kind of focuses everybody on the key components of that you should focus on that are research-based when you're developing a framework for instruction. And so that first page that you have is just kind of delineating that. And if you look at where it says TEA, RLA, based instructional strategies, and 1, 2, 3, 4 of those blue boxes, those are the key pieces that we focused on in that training before we entered into that work of developing a framework. And so foundational skills, text complexity, knowledge coherence, and text-based responses. If you look on the back page, you'll see the results of that work that took place over 3 different sessions with all the teachers to come up with this framework. And really what it is an opportunity for the practitioners in the district, who are the teachers and those that support them, to identify what's important to BCISD to develop literacy in our kids. What is most important in the instruction and how do we carry that out? And then an inventory of, do we have the resources currently to carry that out? And so that's the result of the framework. There's people that are responsible for each level. You've got the teachers, you've got the learner, you've got the parents, you've got the administrators. Every one of them play a part in that piece. Now, even though we are still in the launching period of this, because people are still framing theirs out, we got the grant last year, you will see that this has already created some activity. A lot of the things that have been spoken about with writing across the curriculum, intentionality, with rubrics and how the students write, the different genres. Also, what it did spur is a lot of great conversation across campuses, which also spurred a yearning to want to have some elementary vertical alignment with our reading language arts. And so we began those conversations with our leadership, our instructional coaches that are on the campuses, and our principals starting in September. And we began having meetings and kind of looking at what we had in our framework and where we were as a district, and what are we noticing from campus to campus that we're having issues with that aren't necessarily transferring over. And so identifying those pieces, those instructional coaches and those principals would begin to take and walk down some of those strategies and some of those key concepts that were concerns at the different levels, LRE and at Cherry, where they're implementing pieces of races and other academic vocabulary. When we talk about the language that we use at different campuses to describe an instructional piece, maybe we call it something at this campus, but we're calling it something different at this campus. They've had conversations about that, so that we're using that same, so when students move from level to level, it's the same language that we're using in their understanding. So it's really been awesome. Great conversations. We will have our very first teacher involved vertical alignment in January. We'll come back on the very first day from Christmas. We're meeting again on December 2nd with the elementary team, and they're going to frame out exactly what that's going to look like, and hopefully it'll be a really great opportunity for those teachers to open in some dialogue and really get some intentionality on some of the other things that we want to walk. Now, remember, this is ahead of doing this. So one of the things that you do when you do this is you look at what are the resources that are going to help us get there. And in transparency, one of the things, this can be a springboard into HQIM, which is high quality instructional materials. And you may or may not know how that works when we fund the instructional materials that are state adopted. It comes from instructional materials allotment. And each district gets a certain amount of money for their kids, for them to purchase the state adopted materials. What the state began to let us know is that they are not going to fully fund that anymore unless you are using high quality instructional materials, what the state calls high quality instructional materials. And so there really isn't a choice. Either you do that or you're going to have to spend a lot of money that you just don't have, and you're not going to have that support anymore. I'll give you an example. We had our science adoption last year for this year. We spent close to $1 million on the instructional materials that we needed for that. That's a lot of money. All of that would come out of local funds if we did not have that instructional material allotment. And so knowing that that is going to be a shift, one of the things that we looked at ahead is that if we go through this process of deciding what is important to us for literacy, and then the next process will be applying for a grant that helps support the implementation of that high quality instructional material. Because once we get past these grant opportunities, those opportunities for support to help the teachers do that will not be there. And so when we get to February, I applied for another grant. which was for HQIM support and implementation. We've had our teachers visiting campuses that are implementing HQIM, and what that looks like, we would start only with reading language arts and only K through 5. And then this next year, we will enter into doing a numeracy framework and go through that process, and then go to the next step with HQIM for them. There are some districts who have been off a lot at one time and doing it all at once. It's too much for teachers, and I want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that when we implement it, number one, the teachers are accepting of it, and they own it, and they see the value in what we're doing, but that also they have the time and the support to implement it with fidelity. Then we move on to the next step, instead of trying to do everything at once and then nothing really gets done. So I just want to take an opportunity to let you know about the framework, let you see the results of all the hard work of the actual practitioners in the district. It was really great conversations. It was a little bit scary to be in a room with, it was about 35 English teachers. And so, you know, just me. But it was great. We got a little tense every once in a while. But it was really good conversation. It really was. And I do want to say, and it's not on this topic, that our teacher incentive allotment, the local designation system that we have framed out, really seeing the effects of that already in our campuses and the intentionality of focusing on instruction and teachers wanting feedback on their instruction and how to improve in the T-test rubric and their instruction in the classroom, and seeing what is the result of that with our data that we're seeing with our CDAs. Okay, tell me now, what do I need to do to make those match so that what I'm doing in the classroom matches the data? Those conversations are really, really awesome. When I go to PLCs, when I talk to principals, when I talk to individual teachers, we've had support come in and we do walkthroughs, you know, just visiting with teachers to see what's happening in the classroom. It's really amazing. It's the kind of conversations that should be taking place, period. But sometimes you need an incentive, and the incentive is working so far. And I am so excited to see what the results will be with our growth. I'm so really, really excited. I think it's going to be awesome. Any questions about the framework?
You mentioned that some of the grants that are there now aren't going to be there later, and that we also are doing a staggered release on the different sections. So does that mean whenever we get to some of the other sections that we haven't rolled out yet, that those grants are not going to be there?
They should be. And so that's one of the reasons that we staggered it the way it is, because I asked specifically, will there be another right now? Nothing's guaranteed,
Right.
You know. But the intent is for those to continue for the next couple of years to allow districts that transitional period into HQIM, really probably for TEA to say, we gave you every opportunity, you know, and now it's time. So when we do the math literacy, the math framework, which we will do just like we did last year, the grant awards should come in on February 20th. And then shortly thereafter, we would be able to develop our committee, go through that piece, and go through the exact same process we did to vet HQIM for math K through 5 the very next year. And then that apply for the support that next year, which I'm being told it will be available. But my fear is that if we were to do too much at once, it wouldn't matter. But it should be available, is what I'm told. And I think probably, I would say for the foreseeable future, because the state is still vetting out different areas of HQIM. ROA is the only one that's there right now, and then we've got, they're going through another process to re-vet the HQIM for math that was there previously, and that hasn't been completed yet. So once that gets completed, you would have to have supports for that piece, so it's not already all at once. Yeah.
Right, are there any other questions? Thank you, sir. I appreciate, oh, sorry,
I just want a point of clarification on the grant. That's planning grant, correct? Planning grant, and then I wanted to just make sure that the board understood about HQIM and the funding piece, that the big lift, the giant lift is the allotment, the instruction materials, the IMA.
Yes.
And what they're saying is the state's going to move away from funding anything else. And And so that's the big ticket item expense wise that, and I think as a team, I know we all talked about it, I think it was great. I talked to other superintendents, all 37 of us were looking at HQIM this last meeting, and just going through that, I tell you, I'm so grateful of the phase-in approach, because I have talked to some of those superintendents and just appreciate the whole approach to keeping the teachers in mind. That, you know, this is a big rollout, and yes, it's, as you said, it's not really a choice. It's just so much funding that would need to come to go in any other direction for your instructional materials. So I think it was awesome in listening to others, and when we're talking, we're always talking about, you know, lessons learned, et cetera. But I think that's a huge one. And then you really clarified something gigantic. Well, we were talking a little bit about tracking, but the vertical alignment piece, the communication between campuses, not only with the curriculum and the pacing guides, but also how valuable TIA, teacher incentive allotment, and having those conversations at every level, from high school and long-term plans all the way down to Cherry Elementary. But I think those conversations have been so rich, and bringing things forward as far as involving more teachers, specifically when you brought that point, and I did share that at Region 3 about the CTE courses and the industry-based certifications assessments fitting right in there and qualifying more and more teachers for these substantial incentive allotments. So thank you for clarifying the vertical alignment, because, and I don't, you touched on this a skosh, if you will, but the amount of time that you're on campuses planning with those curriculum meetings on campus is amazing, and you're dedicating full days to that in your schedule. I've seen the schedule top to bottom and meeting with everyone. So I'm just grateful for that clarification, because there's so much of the discussion. And again, we'll have some tomorrow at 9 a.m. with the district principals meeting, but great work, and again, that was huge, and I know it'll be a big lift to launch HQIM, but this approach is going to be so much better for teachers.
Well, I appreciate that, but I do want to say that, you know, a lot of times we have initiatives, there's two ways to do it. There's one to have ownership, and there's one to shove it down somebody's throat. And I will tell you that so many of the things that you're hearing about have happened organically from the staff. Like the vertical alignment, that was organic from the elementary principals. They took on that conversation, and they wanted to make that happen. And so, you know, those things, to me, it's really awesome when that's generated from your staff, and it's not something that you got to do that. And so that's when it's going to be successful. So really kudos to the administration and their staff, especially elementary principals. They've done a great job really going with that. And to hear what's going on at the junior high, and the high school, and literacy, and writing, and all of those things, man, it's just connected. So nothing but good can come of that.
Great, thank you so much for all your work. All right, moving on to items of business. We are going to go a little bit out of order. We're going to talk about the audit report first. I know, I'm sorry you've been sitting here for a while. So
That's okay.
I appreciate you coming to present this evening and being patient with us, but I know that you have to go. So.
Well, a lot of exciting stuff going on. I mean, every time I sit in meetings like this, especially in education, I tend to learn something just from listening to the experts talk about it. So very informative from an outsider's perspective.
Great, thank you.
My name's Wade Whitlow. I'm an audit partner with KML. I just wanted to start off that we had a successful audit this year. You know, my team that comes out, we bring sometimes a little bit too big of a team, but Rick, Vince, their staff, they're more than willing to accommodate and help us in anything we need to get our service conducted and get out in a timely fashion. So very much appreciation goes to them and their staff to help us get to the finish line here today. Now within this report, I'm not going to go over everything within this report in the interest of time, and there's a lot of information in here, a lot of valuable information. But there will be a few things I'm gonna point out to you. And the first thing is past the second tab within here in the financial section. You'll turn to a letter titled Independent Auditor's Report with our letterhead up top. So this is our opinion letter on the financial statements. We're issuing an unmodified opinion that lets the readers of the financial statements know that what they read subsequent to this letter is materially and factually correct. We have two other letters in the back of the report, and I'll get to those as we thumb through the report here a little bit. Various sections of the report, from pages 15 to 24, is required supplementary information. It's the management's discussion and analysis. So this section of the report gives you some of the financial highlights and happenings of the district. It puts it in a little bit more reader-friendly terms without as much accounting jargon. The further you go back into the report, especially to the notes of the financial statements, you start getting into accounting policies and some of the mundane items from an accounting perspective. So this is a good summary of the financial happenings of the district in the current year. Pages 25 and 26, these are the government-wide financial statements. So these are presented on the full accrual basis of accounting. So this has the district, all the district's capital assets, long-term debt, the district's share of the pension liability and OPEB liability with TRS. All that is included in here. And then starting on page 27, this is where we get into the fund financial statement. So this is a different measurement focus that's being reported on, and this is more in line with how the district budgets. So typically I like to turn to these to take a look at a couple items as it relates more to the operational capability of the district. So on page 27, you'll see the balance sheet here, and one item to point out is the district's unassigned fund balance, which is, these are funds that aren't restricted or committed for any purpose. So this is what I like to refer to as the piggy bank for the district. That was at $9.4 million this year. And one of the financial metrics that we'd like to look at to determine if the district has viable fund balance available as it relates to TEA's optimal fund balance, we look at that $9.4 million and compare it on page 29 to the total expenditures within general fund of $41.5 million. So we're just a hair under the 25%, which is 3 months reserve as it relates to unassigned fund balance. Now, that metric is skewed a little bit because there was some spending within general fund for the maintenance tax notes that were issued a couple of years ago. So when we take that spending out, the district's right around that 25% optimal level. After these financial statements, we get into the notes of the financial statements on pages 34 to 72. Like I said, a lot of good information in there. And always, my adage to the notes of the financial statements is it puts a little bit more meat on the bones of the financial statements themselves. It paints a broader picture of the financial statements that we just went over. Subsequent to that, we have some required supplementary information as it relates to the general fund's budget, required pension schedules, required OPEB schedules. Then we have some other supplementary information, some combining schedules of special revenue funds, the child nutrition budget versus actual, the debt service fund budget versus actual, and some other TEA required schedules to be included within this report. Past the last tab, we come to the federal award section. So this is the second and third letter that we're issuing within this report. And our first letter is our report on internal control of financial reporting. So what we do as auditors, we utilize a risk-based approach to determine our audit procedures. And the way the risk-based approach that we utilize is we look at the controls that are in place for the district. If we identify any deficiencies within those controls, we report them within this letter. We do have one item that we reported as a finding this year. When I discussed it with Rick and Vince, they started implementing corrective action right away. So this is in process, and this item is more isolated at year end. So we won't see the fruits of the corrective action until we get to June 30th of 2025. It's related to the calculation of the accrued wages paid. So there was, the old system of Cinder was calculating it, but there wasn't a review process implemented within that. Now, with the transition to Skyward, they are really taking a deep dive into how this is calculated, looking at TDA's financial accountability system resource guide, and making sure that they follow those steps within there to implement that corrective action to eliminate any future findings as it relates to that. The third letter is our report on compliance for each major federal program. So this is related to the single audit portion, or our compliance audit that we're required to fulfill. So we had two major programs that we identified this year. The first was in the last year for ESSER. I think everyone's tired of hearing that word. But, and we also had the child nutrition cluster. We're issuing an unmodified opinion on both of those programs. We did not identify any issues as it relates to compliance within those programs. So that's, once again, that's a clean opinion on those two programs. And lastly, to see the total amount of federal awards, that's on pages 112 and 113. So the total amount of federal assistance that is evaluated for the compliance piece is a little over $9.2 million. And then the very back flat, it's not included within our report, but these are some communications that we had. We had a client advisory letter, which is an optional letter that we issue for any improvement opportunities that we see within the district. These aren't findings that rise to the level to be included on the report on internal control, but these are areas where if they're not addressed, they could rise to that level. So once again, through conversations with Rick and Vince there, as we brought these items up, they're working hard to implement any corrective actions to mitigate these from potentially in the future rising to that level. And then the last one behind that letter is a letter addressed to the board. So this is a required communication that auditors are to formally communicate to the board any significant audit matters that we encounter conducting our audit. Within this letter, we're not identifying anything within this letter that we need to formally communicate to the board that we had issues conducting our audit. When we're able to make the November meeting with no sweat on our brow, it's an indication that everything went according to plan. Even though we ran into some roadblocks with some of the findings we had, that didn't impact us conducting our audit. So that's a clean letter that we're issuing to the board. So with that, I'll wrap up my presentation and take any questions that go out.
The finding on the calculation of the retained earnings for employees, did that have any negative impact on the audit or the finding or the budget one way or the other? Was it a number maybe that wasn't reported and had to be put in the budget somewhere, or was it just a process?
So it was process driven, and what we did is we restated the fund balance going back to 2023. So we had to do a restatement at the beginning in order to, if we just made the adjustment, it would have had significant negative impact to the budget versus actual in the general fund. So in lieu of that, we went back to 2023, made that restatement based on the calculations within that, and then moving forward, with the corrective action being implemented, we won't run into that issue in the future. And any potential budget issues that have occurred in the past, this is gonna help clean that up too, because the big thing with some of your contracted employees, teachers and people that really fall under, I'm gonna get the numbers wrong, 225 or 80 or, so really your teachers, they're earning their pay by the end of school, but then they're getting paid out over the next 3 months. So at June 30th, that pay's been earned, but it just hadn't been paid out. So we have to show that as a liability on the books for the district. It was that calculation within the sender that was not being calculated correctly. And so once we did a deep dive within that this year, we determined what that should be for June 30, 2024. And then with Skyward moving into that, I was hammering Rick and Vince over the head about this. You move into a new system, get your process implemented now. Don't wait until next summer when your year end comes up. Do it now. I know you got lots of other things to do, but trust me, this will alleviate headaches into the future if you just work on this now while it's fresh.
Any other questions or comments?
Just real quick, your piece on moving to Skyward, and just a shout out to Vince as well. And we had our budget workshop recently, and you heard Vince talk about things like uniform schedules and getting everything organized and in systems. One of the other things that he mentioned is the student activity accounts. And so Skyward is incredibly off the charts complex. However, it doesn't miss much. It doesn't. And so I'm excited, as you reported here, that we're going to get into calculation tables. Field tables are amazing as far as we can really track that stuff. Also, we have a mentor that has worked in that system to work with us on that. And I think that has been wonderful for the most part, but exciting things. And I just see the plan as Vince is moving in, because just listening to during our budget workshop, just that he's already hitting on these things, and I think that's wonderful. And just before we move on, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the time you spend with me and all of the marks I make and highlights. I do appreciate your patience, and so a shout out to you as well. I really appreciate your openness to talk about everything and go deeper and all those discussions. I've got so many notes in the margin. I appreciate. And then a shout out for the board to know that with that clean audit, with just tremendous performance in food service, we've got Mr. Brandon Duray coming on, and you should know that the very first meeting I had with him, I thought I was just going to shake his hand and say hello and welcome to the team. We're going to support you. He came with all the compliance paperwork. He was ready to start business, and it's very evident. So congratulations. And also, Elizabeth Rawlings is not here, but she needs a gold medal about this size maybe. That ESSER audit was very meticulous. She inherited that and did a great job of getting everything in line. And I know so many of you were involved in that. And it all worked out. And in the support, I think he would concur, Brandon, with the business office, including me on those emails. And I'm right in the middle of it as far as I see the intentionality that you guys are doing. It's nonstop communication and resulted in this. So we're glad to have you.
Awesome. Great. All right. Any other questions? Is there a motion to be made? to approve.
Make a motion to approve the 2023-2024 operating report.
Great, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second, any further conversation? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
That was Mark Felix, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mark, if you could sign that paper and pass it this way. We'll have it for him. All right. The next item of business is, we're gonna jump back to item A, which is consider to take possible action on the request for execution of release disclaimer waiver of grantors reversion of interest related to district's real property located at block 193 in town of Bay City, Matador County, Texas. Dr. Mack.
This is, you know, we've been working for a while on getting the reversionary clause removed from the property. For those of you that may not know, the way the reversionary clause was set up, that was land donated by, and I cannot thank this family enough. I've been working with John Reynolds and just so gracious, so giving, and tireless in his efforts. I think Mr. Reynolds really, I don't think anyone deserves more credit than him. I mean, I think they even had a centralized meeting, like in Kansas somewhere, where he was talking about, I think his daughter's in New York, and everyone coming together to get all the heirs together to get this reversionary clause removed so that the district has more flexibility with that land. And so we're providing at this point, and I will tell you tonight, and this motion is a Band-Aid on top of a Band-Aid. We really don't need any additional action since we started this process, but I thought it'd just be a good opportunity for us to come together, answer any questions or concerns, or I don't think there's any concerns, but any questions about where we are, because essentially it's removed and will really provide the board with some flexibility moving forward. Any questions?
Thank you for your work on it. I know it's been a lot, and I know Mr. Reynolds has done as well, so thank you to the Reynolds family.
Yes.
Pierce family. And, are there any questions or comments about this? We've been working on it for a long time. All right, is there a motion to be made?
I move the board to adopt the resolution regarding the execution by the Board of Trustees President of the release disclaimer and waiver of grantors revisionary interest related to the district's real property located at block 193 in the town of Bay City, Matador County, Texas.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second to his motion?
One second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any further comments, questions, conversation? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right. Last item of business is the public hearing on School First.
Oh, he's talking.
Sorry. Dr. Mack, I'll
All right. It is, I can tell you it is good news, and Vince is excited to share it. We went through it this afternoon. Vince, it's all yours.
Okay, so just a little something routine, a little earlier this year, so thanks to Rick for that, and definitely been a lot of help. And as we've gone through the transition, I also want to highlight this as his last board meeting, just, really highlight the mentor that he's been to me and just kind of helped me in the transition. Done a phenomenal job. Just want to say thank you for all the work you've done in the district. So, looking at our 23-24 rating based on 22-23 data, which the audit was just printed, you're behind the audit actually. We're just kind of taking a look. So as of June 2023, these are the expenditures made by the superintendent and board members for professional development, travel. If you guys took any, I think this was the year you guys made a trip to San Antonio for one of the board conferences. So you'll see that this is all posted in the board book if you're having any trouble seeing it up there, by the way. But just overall, expenditure is very routine. We do have a copy of Dr. McKay's contract on the district website to compile that piece as well. Looking at any compensation the doc received for professional consulting services or personal services, $0 is a big part of work here. Definitely appreciate that piece. And then any gifts received by you guys. No gifts were received, and there were no business transactions between you and the school district. So, copy report that we received a score of 92 out of a possible 100 points, and we scored the max on 16 out of the 19 indicators. Turned in the AFR on time, so thank you for getting those signed, so we can continue to work with way to make sure we get that taken care of, hopefully prior to, well, it has to be done before Thanksgiving, but hopefully we won't be here next week working on that, so moving along as quickly as we can, and then just a couple of these others, but the three that we did not receive the maximum score on are the same three from the previous one, previous first report that I mentioned. All having to deal with our asset to liability ratio. So basically looking at the district's debt. So we're looking at the bonds to build the schools, the last bond issue, I think was 2019. So looking at current assets versus current liabilities. A lot of that we talked about looking at ways to defeat some of those. We had the board budget workshop last week kind of talking about how we would free up capacity in that way, potentially maintain the tax rate to do that. So you address it that way, and then goes out, we have some liabilities that are sitting out in the M&O side through the means tax notes. Some of the other debt instruments like the time warrants and the SECO loan, some of I always get caught up on the acronym, but I think it's DPFO. Looking at number 11, it's just long-term liabilities, long-term solvency of the district based on total assets, seeing if that's sufficient. And that's also tying into where we're at in terms of student counts. What they do is they take a pre-COVID year, this year would be 2019, comparing it to 2023, and just seeing where we're at. Okay, looking at long-term debt compared to your assets, looking at the solvency there, and saying, okay, do we have a minimum growth of 1,000 students, or what was our ratio of growth comparing 2019 to 2023? As we know, 2019 was a pre-COVID number, 2023 is a post-COVID number, and the attendance initiative and some of the other things that we've implemented are working towards getting us back to where we need to be. Getting that enrollment as well, new housing development, so a lot of things that are going to help with that. And then number 12 is a correlation between future debt requirements and our assessed property value. Ties back in, property values continue to increase. And once again, a lot of this is going to go towards tie back into what we're looking at in terms of, okay, not taking any more maintenance tax notes, and then looking for ways to defease a lot of the debt. Possibly attacking with the Chapter 313 agreement that's not yet received and not currently budgeted for as overall revenue, just for the operation side, so maybe trying to attack it that way. Other than that, it's pretty much the same information I gave you guys last year, just a couple of tweaks on what was spent from year to year. Any questions?
What we had last year, we were 89?
9.
90. Okay. We went up.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for your work.
One more thing, just as an FYI, Vince, and I think I was clicking, I know you and I talked about this afternoon, but when you mentioned the defeasance plans and how that building of the capacity on the INS side, potentially building capacity with the presentation you had, would at the same time fix that problem with the debt to student ratio. So a couple in that presentation, we were talking about M&O fixing kind of itself on the wrong side potentially, and then on the INS side with the potential resolution in the fall. So that INS side would start to fix that indicator as well.
Correct. We should start seeing improvement because of where the ratio would land for short-term, debt and assets and that such stuff. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to, real quick before we move on, Rick, I just wanted to thank you for, I know this is our last time that we'll formally meet in here, so just on behalf of the board, thank you for what you've done for our school district, for the years of service. You've been here for a long time and have a lot of knowledge from the past, and so thank you for your time and for your efforts, and I know Vince has been very complimentary of your efforts in helping transition.
Well, thank you very much.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there an item, are there any items that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to be made?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second? second to the motion? All right, we have a first and a second. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, executive session. We'll convene into closed session under personnel matters if necessary may be taken into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, resignation, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, including contract recommendations for campus and district level administrators and teachers, superintendent retention plan, superintendent evaluation discussion, no action taken. This item may be discussed in closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.074 pursuant to 551.071 and 551.129, consultation with district's legal counsel regarding proposed amendment to number 3 on the application and agreement for proposed tax limitation on qualified property, Rome America application number 1483. And number 3, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberate regarding the submitted resignation from Emily Askew and possible pursuant of sanctions for contract abandonment. We will move into closed session at 8:01. back into open session at 9:32. Is there a motion to be made on personnel?
Make a motion to approve personnel as presented in board book.
Is there a second to the motion? Right back. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
That was James Lanier.
Thank you. All right, moving on to, there's nothing to do for item 2. Item number 3, consider and take possible action concerning the submitted resignation of Emily Askew, including possible requests for sanctions for contract abandonment. Is there a motion to be made?
I move to find that good cause did not exist for the mid-year resignation of Emily Askew and authorize the superintendent to pursue sanctions against Emily Askew with the State Board of Education with certifications for job abandonment.
Wait, it did, no, did not, right? Is it, do you have did and did not on there, Kelly?
Good cause did not exist.
Yes, okay.
That's what I said.
Sorry, so sorry.
All right, is there a second to the motion? All right, we have a first and a second. Any conversation, questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, one last item of business, adjournment. Is there a motion to be made? All right, there's a first and a second. Any conversation? Please remember that December 10th is going to be a budget, not a budget, a meeting for workshop as well as virtual town hall.